Hey, master.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
The spread pattern of these bullet holes makes your chest ache. More old bullet holes, at least half a century. You peer into the faded marks in the stone. They peer back like an endless row of tiny black holes. Your chest feels tight looking at them. It's closing in, caving in, ever tighter. You're breathing.
You okay there? You were looking pale there for a second. What are you looking at? Remnants from the revolution. These are over half a century old. Perhaps a crime of a sort ages ago? But no, these do not warrant an investigation. Not much. I don't have a fresh perspective on it.
A weathered brown door. The number reads, something smells good. Soup along you. The lieutenant motions to you to go ahead and knock.
You're right. Let's talk this through.
You hear light footsteps passing by the door and some folk.
We have our first preliminary identification. In all likelihood, the deceased is the husband of Billy Méjean. Now, delivering a death notification is never an easy task. There's a reason why it's often called the most stressful part of our job. This is why it's usually done in pairs. You got this. Dead? Just don't say that you know how they feel. You don't. We can't. Someone has to deliver the news.
This only makes it harder. Here comes the
Hello? Who is it?
and someone turns down the radio.
The police. A moment, please give us a moment.
Tidying up. No.
Come in, the door is open.
It's you from the bookstand.
Did you come to bring my cockatoo back? I don't think I introduced myself properly. I'm Billy. Would you like something?
The lieutenant has taken off his foggy glasses and is busy condensation from stepping inside.
Is this about Victor, my husband? Is he in some kind of trouble again? No, this is something much worse. Is he in a hospital?
How about some small talk before you break the news?
It's me, Victor, and the kids here. We have 2 daughters. They came home later. The girls are staying at their friend's place tonight. He has a problem with drinking. He's probably in the box drinking with his friends. I sent him to the library a few days ago, but it's in Jamrock.
Central Jamrock Public Library?
I think, yes, if that's the one on Moreau. Just to return a book of mine. Why? Why all those questions yes. His old leather jacket. It's just your average brown leather jacket, but he bought it as a... No, well, the lining is hand-sewn. It's blue. I tried to make the thing more weatherproof since he's running around with it in the middle of... No, I guess I'll find out when he decides to come back home. It shouldn't be long from now. He's never gone for more...
She folds her hands. Here it comes. You've done this before. Just keep your focus. Yes, that's the most important thing. No euphemisms. This is what you came here for.
What did you say?
A great and terrible spike. The blood freezes in her veins.
Oh. But he was just...
But he was just here. Alive.
We understand this comes as a huge shock. I want you to know that me and my partner are here for you.
What happened to him? Was he drunk? I see. And you just found him there, lying in... How long had he been there?
If you say 2 days maybe, it will be etched in her mind forever. She blinks, eyes welling up with tears, as her hand...
Here.
No. I just need to tell my girls.
It burns like acid.
God. Should I call them? Should I...
No. A day.
Good. That's probably the right thing. Just tell me, what do I need to do next?
We've taken him to the city morgue. The local coroner will be contacting you shortly to arrange the funeral. Here's his number in case...
A very good call.
Is there anything else that the RCM could do for you?
No, I'll call you if something comes up. I'm still... Thank you. Thank you for telling me. I'll call if...
We should step outside and talk.
Actual art degree. Trite, contrived, mediocre, milquetoast, amateurish.
You did well. I'll call the station tomorrow and let them know the name of the deceased. That's it. We should get back to our case now that our duty here is done. They'll manage.
They have to. It's not your place to live their lives.
Let's go.
A striking woman leans against the cabin top of her sailing boat, smiling as you approach.
Good evening, officers. I'm Joyce. Joyce L. Messier. I represent the board of Wild Pines, the owners of the harbour. You gentlemen must be from the RCM. I'm glad to see you here.
Like steel, there is strength there. If she wanted,
I was dispatched to handle a strike, not a lynching. Anything I can do to assist the RCM in this...
That is good to hear, madame. My colleague will take the lead on this interview. I should let you know that he is recovering from an unusual medical episode.
it happens quicker than a shooting star. But did the lieutenant just...
How interesting. I wish you a swift recovery. In the meanwhile, you have my full cooperation. Why, yes I am. Of course there are. We're on an archipelago. How else are you supposed to get around? I mean, we are on Le Caillou, are we not?
Technically, the neighboring Ozone and Fas Alamer island groups are archipelagos, while La Caillou, by contrast, is a single fertile landmass, the fourth largest island in the world.
Okay, if you want to get technical. The point is, we're all on islands here, and sail is still the most expedient way to get from one island to another, especially when you're in a hurry to resolve a strike.
She nods attentively.
The boat? No. It is called Cordelati 19 because that's the type of... It's a pleasure craft. A 19 pacer. It also happens to be rated for Category 1 racing. My sloop? I like it a lot. It's the eel's hips, baby.
I'm enjoying this part of the interview. It has so little to do with the murder we're investigating.
Officer, I assure you I'm a highly qualified...
The crowns of her teeth are porcelain, white as the boat's hull as she smiles. Her nonchalance might be related to something called the Wayfarer Act, a law that says she doesn't need a license. Sly fox, you're not aggressive enough to...
Good. What we do. I'm afraid I don't speak for Wild Pines as a whole.
There was a touch of discomfort there. She wants to merely represent.
The Pines' core competency is logistics. Container shipping, freight, that sort of thing. See those airships there, blinking? And that is the terminal. Another subdivision deals with energy, oil and gas exploration, offshore platform.
The Wild Pines Group is one of the original Revacholian Indo-tribes, companies awarded royal monopolies by the king. Saint-Baptiste, Elysium, an unknown entity known as Brightest Star.
Why, thank you. I'm not at liberty to discuss the company balance sheet, but I can tell you that last year, the company booked more than 20 billion. 20 billion is a large number, but the conglomerate employs 72,000 people. They all need to be paid. Then there are capital improvements, interest payments. A conglomerate the size of the Wild Pines is like a shark. If it stops moving, it will die. Then what becomes of those 72,000 families? They started as an exploration and cargo fleet conducting trade between the Samaran and Insulindian Isolas. 250 centuries of care, deliberation, and madness have gone into this endeavor. Vessels pass through the great unrest to re-emerge with apricots in tow. The logic of the system is totalizing. It's taken everything from it. You know more than you let on. Certainly it helped, but most of the original Indo tribes have failed or been absorbed. To survive, Wild Pines had to grow and adapt. No suzerain did that. You mean aside from being the terminal's legal owners, who are responsible for moving 8% of the world's cargo? There are no minor cogs in the system. Each terminal must be accounted for, lest the entire system break. Every hiccup in such a system means thousands lose their jobs, the world over. I'm here to assure that doesn't happen. Everything. Right up to, but not including, trade secrets. I believe the official title is Senior Labor Negotiator. In practice, I'm a grocery clerk. I relay the union's demands to Wildpine.
No way. She's more. She can make decisions.
And how are the talks going?
They're not. That's the problem. The union stopped all negotiations a week ago.
Wait. She just admitted that the lynching and the strike are...
Now they won't even let me into the harbour. There's a 2-meter 20 racist behemoth blocking the gates. Yes, Jean-Luc Measurehead. Yes, I believe there is a connection, but that's a subject for later. Let's say I was not making the kind of progress I'd hoped for when...
And when did you first arrive?
I arrived 3 weeks ago. Yes, in the middle of February. The bay was still partially frozen then. I prefer to do these things...
But the strike began in December.
I wasn't the original negotiator here. I took over after Mr. Gaumont hit a wall with Mr. Clare, the union boss. Mr. Clare refused to speak with Gaumont despite concession.
This isn't the first time the union has gone on strike.
Heavens no. There have been 2 prior strikes. Both times the union won significant concessions, including overtime pay and a medical plan. This time...
Ludicrous even. It's meant.
Mr. Clare told him to... How did he put it? Fuck off, midget. Gaumont is short of stature, you see. Keep in mind, this is a negotiator Mr. Clare has worked with before, and who was more than fair with... There are leaflets everywhere, and banners. What did they say again? Every worker, a member of the board. Then you might also like their other slogan. Demand democracy. Personally, I don't think it has the same pizazzo as every worker, a member of the board. It's quite simple, you see. Every time the Wild Pines group makes a decision about what? About anything, really, it needs the signature of each of the... Just so you understand, this is but one of 22 terminals owned by Wild Pines. Essentially, not only are they kings of the company, they are also kings of the 72,000 employees of Wild Pines Group. They're having a blast. But how can they afford it? After 4 months, my assumption was they would prefer a more... I'm not sure. Naturally, I assumed that was just their opening position, a hard-nosed tactic with a side of mockery. But there's been no follow-up, just the same nonsense. And now, people are getting lynched, I hear. Behind the whirling in rags. A disastrous situation if they...
Excuse me, from whom did you hear about this lynching?
I first heard it from the bowyer at the gates. The one whose very name advertises his aversion to work. I think he said it was...
This checks out.
the scabs. You mean the huddled masses of Jamrock, come to plead for work?
Don't let her answer it herself.
If these strikebreakers were organized by Wild Pines or its affiliates, then it would be a company secret.
It's implied. She's open to discussing this matter with you at a later...
Everard Clare is a man of the utmost integrity. If you can say one thing about him, of course not. Everard is fantastically corrupt. I imagine he has a thick, viscous goo where you and I have blood. He is the most corrupt individual I have ever seen, and I deal with men like him for a living. If there is anyone more venal, more irredeemably nepotistic, then it's his twin brother, Edgar. Yes, Edgar looks exactly like his brother, except for that lazy eye. He also talks exactly like Everard does. It's how they circumvent the term limits, you see, with a funny little switcheroo. While in office, they've embezzled God knows how much of their workers' dues. The Débardeurs Union was once a perfectly normal institution. 20 years ago, anyway. It must not have been easy to establish under the Emergency Act, but they organized labor at its best, as they say. Then something happened in the local chapter elections. The brothers Clare came and transformed it into a... how do you say?
A mob. The Débardeurs are a crime syndicate. Sad as it may be, we are forced to call...
Refreshingly honest, officer. The company has tried appeasing in the past, but I'm afraid our concessions have only emboldened. And your opinion, detective, if I may ask? I'm a curious and talkative person, you see. Would you say the Debardeurs Union is... Thank you for being candid. Sadly, Wild Pines have cooperated with what amounts to a crime syndicate for 2 decades. However much you feed the wolf always hungers. I'm glad you asked. There was a woman, the previous forewoman of...
Disappeared?
Yes. On the last day of the local chapter elections, her daughter phoned in and said she wasn't running anymore.
This forewoman, her name?
Sadly, the company records do not even give a name. She's just forewoman in private correspondence. Holly. I don't even know if it's a sir or give. Downright haunting, if you ask me. The Wild Pines suspected foul play. The point of the presentation is, these kinds of things happen around the Clare.
Thank you for your concern, ma'am. We'll be just fine.
Of course. How else can I help? You have? And how did you like Mr. Clare? Oh, come on now. He has his uses. How else would he have stayed in power? Corruption. That's how he's done it. Fantastic. Worm-like.
The position of my unusual colleague does not reflect official policy.
Of course. And I don't expect you to share anything he told you with me. I'm not a corrupt worm myself. How could I stop you? Are we not human? Are we not curious to hear another person's take?
Intellectually speaking, it would be quite interesting to hear what she has to say about these things.
Did you now? What sort of borscht is he making? The strike brew. That's a classic. And by turn up the heat, I presume you mean put... Why, if I may ask? Why make them more drunk? Aren't they corked enough?
Yes, detective. What were you hoping to accomplish with this strange thing?
Very curious. A very curious
Truly. But that's how he operates. He just does things, man. And then talks about them.
What else? A referral, you mean? I take it this was for someone in the RCM. Don't...
My liege, this woman has half convinced herself already. All it would take is a...
Oh my.
The lieutenant does not say anything, but you hear the nylon of his jacket rustle as he looks at you.
That's good to hear, Detective. Police work is rarely pretty.
Frankly, what was done was not pretty at all, but neither was it illegal. And I advise you to be very selective with what information you choose to share. This may have consequences beyond our line of sight.
Misinformation. This is all because we haven't shared information on the lynching yet. See? Already the adversary uses... Hurry up on that probe. The moment you tell me you're finished at the traffic jam, I will gladly tell you the company's side of the story. Naturally, Detective. There are lighter topics to gossip. Sounds like he has you running errands, Detective. A well-established dominance ritual. Ah, yes. I've been meaning to go there.
With longing. Clear and simple longing. Strange.
A youth centre with Edgar Clare's statue on top of it. Go ahead. Help him. Make it so. I have no power to stop him. I should be. In my youth, I had a brief dalliance here in Martinez. He was an older man with... He's probably dead by now. Even his shack is long gone. Not that it... Yes, I was slumming it with some girlfriends of mine. We had boats and... Don't hold it. Not overly so. It's not like this was the only place we visited. Me and my girlfriends from Azon, we told ourselves we were the worst thing to happen to the coast since the Coalition landed in '08. Imagine. Yes. I'm sad I'll never have the time, Detective. I've always wondered.
She is more defensive about it than
Full of ghosts and ancient memories. Has this errand yielded you any information? Of course, Detective. Should something come up later, down the road? Until then, is there anything I can help you with? Quite a few things, I'm afraid. The information I'm to share with you includes sensitive trade secrets. For the sake of my employer, I have to ask for your name.
Of course, ma'am. We should have introduced ourselves. I am Lieutenant Kitsuragi, from Precinct 57.
Pleased to meet you, Lieutenant. It is a relief to see a W freighter here. The situation is precarious, to say the least. It needs a quick solution, or we will have a bloodbath on our hands. Yes. I'm afraid this strike may descend into a small-scale civil war.
Since you are sharing, ma'am, this is also the RCM's worst-case scenario.
Then we're on the same page, as grim as it may be. I have an indirect role to play, I'm sad to say. My employer experienced a momentary lapse of faith in me. In that moment, they elected to deploy a private military contract. They were dispatched after I relayed the union.
Every worker...
A member of the board. I tried to convince my employer it was simply a piece of rhetoric, or a joke. They did not appreciate... Absolutely not. These mercenaries are muscle, pure and simple. They are meant to intimidate the Union.
Who are they, exactly?
Crenel, an Oranese military company. As far as I know, 3 arrived in Martinez. They report to me sporadically, but they do not answer to me. They wear ceramic armor, have semi-automatic weapons, and years of combat experience. They also have trauma and stressor disorder, and no idea how to conduct them.
So, what happened?
The story is, one of them, the Colonel, I don't know his real name, sexually assaulted a local woman while he was drunk and separated from his unit. This allowed some of them... He was taken out behind the whirling in rags and lynched. Nothing. Mr. Clare refuses to let me into the harbor. I have not been able to discuss this matter with anyone there. The remaining 2 Crenel contractors carry out their order. It's a smokescreen. In secret, they are conducting an independent military tribunal.
What is the nature of this so-called investigation?
Whether to execute one, some, or all of the Union militants. It's not good, no. My only hope is that you provide a single concrete suspect before the mercenaries indiscriminately pick theirs. Simply put, if you don't pin this on someone good, and do it fast, they will identify and execute everyone present at the lynching. This in turn will...
The Debardeurs have over 2,000 men. It will be 1,000 to 1.
Have you ever seen a hornet invade a beehive, Lieutenant? It's not pretty.
the Serai's giant hornet, the world's second largest insect, can kill 40 honeybees a minute, while a group of 30 can decimate an entire...
These men work in tandem using semi and fully automatic firearms. Their armor is virtually impenetrable to muzzle-loaded weapons, even yours. As I said, a bloodbath. Too many things have already gone wrong. Lieutenant W. Freight. All we can do is keep that which is not from following suit. One single concrete suspect delivered into civil court, and I may be able to defuse this situation. Not much. Their public resume is relatively good, as far as private military contractors go. They boast a long list of clients. Saint-Baptiste, Welchman-Lorenz, Eintracht. A warning sign, however. The operations concerned all...
Meaning they're used to operating in war zones.
Yes. All the good conflict corridors. Supramundi, Yesut, the Seminese Islands. Countries that don't have a good record reporting atrocious military conduct on their soil. I wouldn't go as far as to use that term, Detective.
It's the expression she objects to?
Sadly, no. Before this happened, I had little interest in them. Now that If you still have access to the ICP's database, you could run a better background check than I ever could. It may take some time, though.
Do you know a lot about the inner workings of the RCM and the AC?
In my line of work, it pays to do your research. I was prepared to deal with the RCM. I did not think I'd be dealing with a group like... I have. and they will. However, these orders take time to reach what is basically a rogue unit out in the field here.
She's being truthful. She is pressing them as hard as she can.
Or he didn't. This is information passed on to me from some teenagers loitering around the canal. The remaining contractors. Their tribunal. That the man was killed because he assaulted a local woman. I've asked around a bit.
The lieutenant consults his notebook, his eyebrows knitted in...
We haven't heard any reports about an assault in connection with the lynching. What?
Last Sunday night, at the Whirling in Rags, the hostel by the gates. Supposedly, the colonel was drunk. Either way, he's alleged to have sexually assaulted a woman. Sometime later, a group of dock workers got... That's a good question, officer. I don't have the slightest idea. As I said, it's a rumor. About a rumor. In any case, it's what the colonel's remaining... If you mean did I see him alive? Yes. But I did not know him. Lely. His service name. A nom de guerre, most likely. He wouldn't divulge his full name. Only one is a man. Corty, they call him. A nickname as well. The other a woman. Phyllis de Paul.
What would you say was his eye color? The deceased's?
She closes her eyes, trying to picture the man's face.
I can't remember.
That's all right, man. Anything else? Nationality? What would...
He was 40. Or 50. It's hard to say which. He had a combat injury on his...
Indeed. This matches the dental reconstruction we saw on the body. What else? Nationality? Accent?
He was, Occidental, I think. Light brown hair, a mixed accent. Oranese. In a way, it was humanizing. He had to learn to speak through it. Through the injury. That's all I know, I guess. I only met him once. They've gone to ground, as it were. I don't recommend seeking them out. For one, they're almost certainly armed to the teeth. They don't have the same respect for the Revachol citizens' militia as I do. To put it bluntly, they think you're vigilantes. Ghetto savages. It will not be a fruitful meeting. You're likely to run into them eventually. When that happens, I'll be in a better position to mediate if I don't appear involved.
One is obviously the scab leader at the harbor gates. The one chanting the idiotic slogans. He's barely maintaining his disguise.
That may be so. I still hope you heed my advice. There's no need to kick the hornet's nest.
For all your talk of averting this catastrophe, the situation at the gate is a powder keg. Does this not bother?
Of course it bothers me, Lieutenant. But my hands are tied. How would my employer react if it...
Your concern may be appearances. Ours is keeping the peace.
I hope I can answer it better. Until the executions start? Truthfully, I don't know. It depends on their progress identifying the members.
They don't report their progress to you?
Not on this matter. I'm afraid they consider this a personal initiative. It's a matter of days, not weeks. I am sorry to have been the bearer of bad news. If there is anything else I can help you with...
She reaches for the photo, takes it, then holds it for about half a minute in silence. She wears fingerless gloves. Her fingernails are cut short and fractured, like those of a...
It was taken with a trigette not long ago. This is the man's upper body. There were no more markings on his hands or legs.
Her mouth is relaxed. The accordion lines near her mouth vanish.
Sorry. I was trying to see if I can read the web of interdependencies between... I can't. But that's how you read this story. The points themselves don't have letters, numbers, anything. Their size, location on the body, and distance from each other tells you what they rep... Close. Port cities. This is an Oranese map of the waterways. A sailor's tattoo worn by wayfarers of the Dolorian century. The sailor's soul would use it to fly back home if they should die abroad. This is a sort of contraption to be reeled back in by. Quite a few. Vredefort, the Oranese capital, traditionally stands on the right shoulder.
What next?
Then he made his way to the Pretto Grande, through what I think must be the Stutz Canal, an artificial channel through the Occident. From the Plecto, he sailed to the Insulindic Ocean, first as Revachol. Those are the two constants. Vredefort on the shoulder, and Revachol in the heart. They started the tradition of these maps, right?
The old world passing by, and the new.
You said you can't read it.
I can't. This man was no sailor, and these are no ports. I can understand geographic fragments.
Vredefort? Vredefort has a military academy. The Seminoles Islands saw a recent conflict. In Revachol, he was
That makes sense to me. We have no more use for a map of the waterways, just like we don't need sailors the way we used to.
For all the boys looking for adventure, a blood spatter on the seas.
His platoon members? The other contractors, though I do not suggest you go and show them that picture.
Surely there are other people to ask about the tattoo. This is not necessary to complete the task, officer. It's a dangerous side task. Search elsewhere.
Do what you have to do, Detective Dubois. I don't think deciphering that tattoo should come before public security. But if you should wade into the mob to find out, I couldn't stop you.
We will be careful, ma'am.
Is there anything else I can help you with? This reality?
Yes, reality is your side case. An experimental side case.
How truly curious. A sort of philosopher detective.
Are they now?
A deep synthesis. I'll assist you however I can then.
All right, we're in. I know these all look good, but begin with the first, okay?
We're in Martinez, baby. Martinez is a district of Revachol. A very small district tucked away near the industrial harbour. North of the... You would be excused for not knowing about it. Unimportant, they say. Forgotten, even. Shelled to smithereens during the Revolution. It has its charms, just not this time of year. I'm not a good ambassador. I've only been here once before, as a teenager. Not a lot has changed. This place used to be a province, a workers' resort before the city swallowed it and the artillery did its work. The reeds are the real star of the show here. It's not really a sea, it's the Bay of Revachol. And the bay feeds into the ocean. Yes, we're on an island in an ocean, the world's largest body of...
Known to the early Revacholians as Les Immensités Bleues, the Blue Immensities.
Caillou, as you already know. Imagine a pebble. A smoothed-over pebble amidst a great blue sea, misshapen, cracked. The cracks are the river Esperance. We're in...
It is clear this pebble is of enormous value and to humanity at large.
Revachol? Revachol is what you call the great kind. History detective. They built this city to resolve history. Our part in it, at least. The nations of the Occident, or migrant workers from Seminine and Ile Marat, in the DeLorean century. 380 years ago. They say it's where the terrible questions of our time will be answered. The tensions are highest, by that I mean conflicts. We are standing on a fertile, self-sufficient island able to sustain up to 200 million people in the middle of the Insulindic Ocean, the world's connective tissue. It's where the money is. I think it's fair to say so. Martinez is about...
A sparkle of lights on the horizon, like evening stars above the curve.
22 kilometers from the center of the world. That soldering iron is the bank of the world building. The bottom floors are Insiacom.
Silence. She lowers her hand. The water, the light. There is no recognition. Only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it. She observes your eyes scanning the horizon. This is one thought you need to complete.
Was there something else you wanted to know? I remember something about a loadout.
This has been informative. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure my memory-impaired partner has many more questions to ask. But might I suggest not asking them all right now? Messier will be here later too, and tomorrow.
Absolutely. My commitment here is long-term.
Of course not. You are already diligent for getting this far, and diligent boys remember where they left off.
Indeed. I'm always at your service. These are unimportant times, Detective. You and I were born after the dust had settled. 1,000th for the big time. The revolution. It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so, our species gets together to decide what's next, who gets shot in the head, and who gets the mineral rights. Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution. Oh, and the anarchists too. They shot them well. So well, did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people.
Yeah, it was a kerfuffle, all right.
Yes, the Insulindian deluge, they call it. Oh, lots of people. Even the king got shot in the head, or thrown beneath a horse, or drowned. Accounts differ. It was unceremonious. Just as well, he wasn't actually the king. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad. Yes, King Guillaume had a nose for bad PR. He ran before it. What is the expression? Went down? Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. The liberals got the mineral rights. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war...
We. She's one of them. Of course.
To foreign intervention. The coalition. Those people really took the mineral rights. The liberals took everything that wasn't nailed to the ground. The coalition took the ground. The coalition of nations. Grad, Mesk, Vesper, Messina, Oranje, and Sur-la-Clay. The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in mineral rights, at least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. They are the long-standing provisional rule. This is their zone of control. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took.
The color of moralism is blue. The official motto of Moral Intern, or Moralist International, is a blue forget-me-not, a piece of grey sky. Unofficial. For a moment, there was hope.
A devout man of the center. Hard to come by. It's good to have someone who takes a moderate approach to the turn-of-the-century revolution. Don't answer it. The revolution began in '02 on the Isla of Grad, though it wasn't a who, but a what. A pandemic of Zarat, a particularly virulent prion disease, which the authorities in Grad proved it made people overthrow their governments. Of course not. It was a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed brain tissue.
It was a funny time in history. They discovered transistors and rock music, but they didn't know anything about pride.
From Revachol and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Mazov's government was overthrown in '08. Why? You and I, officer. Our lives in the zone of control. Modernity. They developed the marvels of the inter-estuary communication. Telematic milieus, radiation, colored plastics. 43 years. Hard to fathom, I know. The 20s saw a decade of urban war, west of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still, it's regarded as an improvement on what came before, 08 to 19. The 30s? Things settled down in the 30s. Revachol East transformed itself into the world's largest tax haven, with the international community's blessing. No, it was a market mirage fueled by cocaine and quantitative easing. The 40s dispelled it like a cold splash, an Isla-wide hang. Welcome to reality, baby. Good question. What would you have done differently?
No, her first.
And I asked you, philosopher detective of the Citizens Militia. And you would have died, most likely. Not far from here. Maybe even right here, during the beachhead, defending the coast the day the Coalition took the city. Good. Not that it would have mattered. In the end, the Commune forced everyone to the barricades. They are what they are. Who knows? An afterbloom may yet come. Anyway, enough sentimentality. Is there anything...
Not so fast. Who is she in all this? Ask her who she is. She owes you an answer. She won't maneuver her way out of this one.
I am the vilest of the vile. A traitor. A devourer of nations. I am an ultra. An ultra-liberal. It's a type of liberal. From the revolution. It's, not the moderate kind. No. Not like me. I am the nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp who push... Are you liberated enough to offer up your home on a plate for financial colonists? No. I think not.
In her green eyes, you see a mixture of truth and self-satire. Decades of guilt and pride.
I hope you do. I hope we are able to continue as friends, despite my scales and my... Honestly, I may have even preferred it, had the communards won. Who knows? They might really have built something better. When the dust settled, the Liberals were the only ones left to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power to shape the future. This was all our last generation managed. With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinaise, I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the Coalition. Not here in Martinaise, and not in the Stella Maris or Delta Beachheads either. If not for... then for my daughters. We had an obligation to defend our sovereignty. We should have burned the whole Isla down rather than let them have it. Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a mother and a wife. Now, shall we return to reality? A bird? A sphenicid? A flightless bird of the polar regions? Ah! This is the pier of Rue de Saint-Ghislaine, 32. A pre-revolutionary tenement. Old buildings are called tenements, you see. And new buildings, bâtiments. After les bâtiments nouveaux. This one used to be 8 to 10 stories tall. A real high-rise by the standards of the last century. Built to mirror the skyscrapers across mostly the urban middle class, I believe. This was once primo real estate, before the cannons locked 4 or 5... Splat, splat.
You could be wrong, but from here it appears as if she's running the brush.
Wonderful. The girl in the old lady rags. Looks like a sullen and rebellious member of a teen... Yes, you and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, She prefers a fantasy world. An infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It is an illusion, I'm afraid. There is no refuge from the supraculture. I can't. That's how simple it is. One may dye their hair green and wear their grandma's coat all they want. Cattle has the ability to subsume all right. What next?
Suddenly, you're not so sure you're part of the supraculture.
And what would that be?
She lets out an unrestrained laugh. The crow's feet.
My reality-impaired colleague is not so far off. Many of the RCM's fashions, even weapon preferences, borrow heavily from classic Vespertine cop shows. My precinct alone. But please, do continue this reality exploration.
Yes, let's. Glad to have been of assistance. The little that I know. Of course, Detective. Take...
What's this? We're getting reports of normal, reasonable, temperate, political opinions somewhere in Martinez. It's also about that, but it's also more. Perhaps it's the hangover. Perhaps it's time to become a citizen of the Kingdom of Conscience. It is not a place. It is a moment in time that can only arise in the right circle incrementally. History's greatest catastrophes have been brought about by people trying to make the world. That's the genius of Dolores Day. She recognized that progress is meaningless if its gains are lost because of instability. Real, lasting change can only come about gradually. Tisk tisk. Just because you live in the present doesn't mean you have the right to place. You may never live to see the Kingdom of Conscience. Your children may not. Even your grandchildren might not. What benevolence! The kingdom is difficult to comprehend, and even more difficult partly because humanity will need to discard many of the categories that define and limit it today. It's also post-industrial, post-ideological, and even post... Slow down, Mr. Reasonable. Did you miss the part about compromising and taking things? That's right. Remember, real democracy is just around the corner for Revachol. When that real democracy kicks... The porter reel is just what you needed. The reel's attached to the apparatus with a satisfying click. The tape is routed behind the magnet. You press the large button marked Commencer, and the tape starts spinning. There's a small delay before the song. It sounds like someone's moving in the room, getting comfortable. Then the organ starts playing, a simple telling you about the tiniest church in Cessons, surrounded by even tinier yard. You almost, within seconds you know, this is the one, the real shit you've been looking for. The one you trust your... A click, then silence for a bit. Then the tape stops spinning. Of course you could sing this. You could take sad to a whole new level with this. And you already... Yup, they're all here. All 3 verses. And The B-side of the tape contains the instrumental version. It's like the world itself is telling you to do it. Gart, you have to convince Gart to let you sing karaoke in the whirling. After you've won him over, you can express yourself. The lieutenant looks at you as you remove the tape from the boombox.